Hello and welcome to the first points paying round here in the World Series League's GT3 US Series. After last week's thrilling ending to the Media Day Endurance race, we're entering our first points paying race of the season, which brings us to Daytona International Speedway, home of the Rolex 24 and the Daytona 500, two of the mainstay events here in the United States for motorsport racing. John, I think between the two of us, we've got close to probably 5,000 laps around this track and all manner of racing sims, so I couldn't imagine a better place to start out the points paying season than right here in the World Center of Racing. I'm Austin Belke, joined by John Hine in the booth with Daniel Costello behind the scenes in the production trailer. John, I think this racetrack is going to give us some phenomenal racing today.
Oh, I agree 100%. You've got great passing zones. You've got, going into the bus stop. You got going into turn one. Both horseshoes will also provide great braking opportunities for passing. And one of the overlooked places actually to set up one of those passing zones there into the bus stop is getting out of the infield and onto NASCAR 1 here over in turn one and getting a good run down the backstretch here at the Daytona International Speedway.
Yeah, this large track with such long straightaways, really good opportunities to get behind somebody, get in the draft of the driver ahead of you, kind of use that slipstream to your advantage so you don't even have to really outbrake a guy going into a corner. You just have all the overspeed so you pass him before you've even gotten to the braking zone. Can lead to a lot of exciting racing and certainly some tight battles as the race goes on. You can see some of the weather information on your screen. 19 degrees Celsius out there on track, a 5% humidity, clear skies, very little wind here, John. So these guys aren't going to really have to worry about which direction they're heading based on the direction of the wind, because, obviously, if you're going in the wind, you get some added downforce. If you're going with the wind, you get some added lift, we'll say, towards the rear end of the car. Really can lead to some instability under braking as the race goes on.
Yeah, and you get a gust of wind in the right spot here. You hear the real world counterparts talk about that kind of stuff. It can all of a sudden change where your braking point is. All of a sudden you might have to back up by 15, 20 feet to get into a corner if the wind picks up. But one big thing we saw it last week. Tire wear. We heard it in the post-race interviews and everything else here. I am going to be real interested into seeing what tire wear is going to look like, because these braking zones, you do brake pretty heavily and you can carry a lot of speed into these corners, and I think that's a recipe to chew some tires up.
I'm certainly inclined to agree with you there, John, especially because last week, we had a 50-minute race, and splitting that race up in half, as most drivers did. The longest we saw somebody run was about 35 minutes in the race. We saw, of course, I think Harry didn't take any tires over the course of his entire 50-minute race, but today we're doing an additional 25 minutes over that. The race today, it's a long sprint endurance type race. We call it a sprint because it's not a full 24 hours, but it is kind of more of an endurance rating compared to the 25-minute sprint races like we saw last week, and like we're going to see as the rest of the series and season continues to take place. So 1 hour and 15 minutes for these drivers, and really there's not a whole lot of opportunity to kind of undercut the field. It means you're going to have to make your tires pay off for the long run here.
Yeah, and that's going to be, I think, part of their strategy. I mean, I have to think, how hard do you go? When do you go? Is there any thought to any kind of tire conservation? I mean, can you just go run all out until the pit stop and then take some new tires? We watched Matthew Plaisant get through the bus stop there, and that's going to be one of those areas that, yeah, if your tires aren't under you, it could get pretty hairy through that corner.
It certainly can, and usually, most racetracks we see are going to be like this one, where, for the larger part of the driver's laps, they're going to be wearing on those left side tires a lot more so than the right side, just by virtue of all the right-hand turns they're making. This track, by and large, is, though, sort of a left-turning oval, but when you get into those hairpins on the infield section especially, lots of tight right-handers there, so lots of opportunities for guys to burn up the tires on both sides of the car. Not only do you have the really slow, really harsh sections there on the infield, small, tight corners, but you also have the extremely fast left-handers there in terms of, NASCAR 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, those big banked corners.
Yeah, and that, funny thing is about those though, the infield here going through it is fairly intense. You're on the wheel, you got right-handers, you got a sweeping left bend through the middle of the infield, but you get up on that NASCAR part of the track and you actually can relax for a minute. You can think about your strategy. You can look through your black boxes to kind of map out what you're going to be doing, maybe when you come to pit road or whatever. So the being on the oval is actually probably the most relaxed they'll be through the course of the night.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so glad you brought up that point there, John. If when you go out onto the NASCAR part of this circuit, there's a lot of opportunities for these guys. You can, like you said, look through your black boxes. That's usually when I will go ahead and update my pit stop settings to, change the tires I want to have fitted on the car. Some leagues you have a fast repair. You can go in and click or unclick that box, maybe just the fuel settings. These races really do come down, not a fuel strategy race in terms of people running out, but you want to make sure you take as little fuel as possible on your pit stop that can get you to the end of the race, because anytime you save on pit road is time gained out there on the racetrack. And especially 1 to 2 seconds on pit road, it looks like 4 to 6 seconds out on the racetrack.
Yeah, and with all the high-speed parts of this course where they're going to be up around 160 mile an hour, maybe even a little bit higher if they're in a draft, an extra second or two in the pits with maybe overshooting your pits and having a backup or something like that. That can be a big distance on the track, actually.
It certainly can. Look in here on board with James Pierce. He was one of the drivers we talked to last week. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he won the sprint race to start off the night there after a pretty decent battle. Even at the sprint race, we had a really good battle. But boy, the end of that race in Spa, I tell you what, folks, if you haven't seen the last week's race, that media day race we had around Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, really highly recommend you go check it out. I mean, it was a thrilling race in the middle part of it. You know, usually when they get boring, there was still stuff to look at. But man, that finish, when it came down to the end, I'm not going to spoil it in case you haven't seen it just yet. But seriously, after you get done watching this one, please do go back and check out the other one, because the ending was insane.
Yeah, and you know, these guys got a long season together too, and then starting it out like that in that fashion, you know, you've really got to make sure, you know, it doesn't anything ill will or carry over from week to week. It's pretty early to be hanging on to stuff. So the good news is last week was for no points at all, and we saw James Pierce there go for a little bit of spin as he hit the bus stop there.
Yeah, got into it just a little bit there with one of his teammates there from Twisted Racing. One spun up into the outside wall, one spun down there into the tire barrier on the inside of the racetrack. Hopefully we don't see too much of that going on tonight, but I think it's just friends there on the same race team. And you know how it is, John, in practice. You see your friend ahead of you, and you come up to a corner, you kind of forget where the brake pedal is, just to have fun with them.
Yeah, you want to pass them, so maybe you drive it in just a little bit deeper to get around your teammate there. As we look to wrap practice up, and we're about ready to get this party started here from the Daytona International Speedway.
That's right, John. It looks like in a couple seconds here, you'll see the checkered flag finally wave here on this 15-minute practice session. And this now means it's time for our drivers to grid up. They'll have about, 2 minutes or so to grid up, which means we can bring you folks at home through the entire starting lineup. Lining up on pole in the Pro Division is Jacob Schneider. Starting his outside is Chase Wilson. Third place is Kyle Boss. Alex Murray is going to line up in fourth, followed by Harry Wills in fifth. Kai Dalzell is going to line up in sixth with Ethan Bass in seventh. James Pierce is going to line up in 8th, followed by Chris Long in 9th. Taylor Lane in 10th. Jeremy Littleton, Ryan Kaprowski, Daniel Tenorio, 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th. Dean Timms rounds out your 14-car field starting lineup. In the Pro-Am division, Nick Stein's going to start on pole with Blake Scott to his outside. Mark Scott can line up just behind him in 17th. Shris Vianakadachu is going to line up in 18th, followed by Rich Calais in 19th. Eric Kulaga in 20th position. Braden Mailing in 21st. Michael Fowler in 22nd. Andrew Hughes in 23rd. In the 24th position is Justin Rizzo. Kyle Smith's going to line up in the 25th spot, followed by Steven Martinez starting in 26th. Christopher Johnson's going to line up in 27th with Jeff Corollo in 28th, Michael Kulaga in 29th to round out the Pro-Am category. In the Am field, Greg Brockway is going to line up on pole, followed by Eric Papineau. Matthew Plaisance is third, Aaron Beaver fourth, Eli Sasick in 34th starting position, Andrew Hewitt going to line up in 35th, Mark Chapman going to line up in 36th. Rick Swan, John Casey round out the 38-car field here today. You can see he's the 9th and final driver there in the AM category. Well, John, as the field starts to pull away from where they started, go ahead, buddy.
No, as I say, they're pulling away already over in the NASCAR 3 and 4.
Yeah, field starts to pull away here on through the racetrack. They're going to bring the pace car, iRacing pace car, going to bring the field here down onto the tri-oval. And this is where the butterflies start to happen. This is where your entire season starts off, and you want to make sure if you've got any shot at winning that championship, you need to have a pretty darn good shot at having a good race today. After all, a championship run is all about consistency. iRacing pace car makes a hard left down pit road. Waiting now to see our pole sitter Jacob Schneider put his foot on the loud pedal. He's going to wait almost entirely until that start-finish line. It is his prerogative to wait until as long as he wants. He's going to get a pretty storming start here up at the front end of the field before everybody finally has to bring their cars back down to a more slower motion there for turn one. It's a really big pinch point there, John.
It is, and as they come right in here to the International Horseshoe here, you got to be careful. Each car has different characteristics. So just because you can drive in a little bit deeper, let's say in a Mercedes, and we got one off already.
Yeah, one car off in the grass as you see the Pro-Am field starts to pull away. That's Nick Stein starting that Pro-Am field. He's going to go for a little bit of a wider berth there before cars. Oh, getting a little bit three wide there as they head down into turn one, and now it's their turn to start hurtling towards the International Horseshoe.
Yeah, and as I was saying, each car, we got another one that kind of spun off coming off the corner there, but each car has a little different characteristics. Some cars, we got another one off. You can brake a little bit deeper, but you can't quite get on the gas quite the same. So each one of these cars have each little quirk, and you've got to know who's around you and what car they're in and race accordingly. As now we see the amateurs, the M division approaching the Horseshoe.
Yeah, AM division started off there by Greg Brockway. He's going to lead the field. Whoa, a little bit more contact. Aaron Beaver looks like might have shoved the car there down into the corner. Might have hit there Matthew Plaisance.
Yeah, that looked like he had a little help as quickly as that car got turned around there. And that again, braking points, different things. It's really tough when you're bottled up like that. Everybody's got to be a little patient to get through there. But we're off and going here, and already the Pro Division is coming through the tri-oval to complete lap one.
Yeah, the Pro Division completing their first lap. You can see Jacob Schneider still in the lead of this thing. He has it. Kyle Boss wants it. You saw a little bit of bump drafting, John, between those two drivers, the Mercedes all the way up to and at that rear bumper of the Audi as they came into the tri-oval to complete their first lap there. Not very often do you see bumping, especially not in these GT3 cars, but it is kind of a disadvantage to pull out of the draft at the last second just to be slowed down and maybe even compromise your exit compared to the guy in front or behind you to just pull out a line a little bit.
Yeah, the big thing about being in the draft is you come into turn one is if you're behind there, you've got to realize you're probably going a lot faster than what you practice. So you're going to have to lift a little bit, maybe brake a little bit differently going in the corner. I myself have been victim many times being in somebody's draft and coming up to either the bus stop or turn one and get there and go, uh-oh, I'm going a lot faster than what I thought I was.
Yeah, just a little bit hotter than you would expect lap after lap when you have that draft. You get going just a little bit faster down the straights that time by going into turn one. You saw the driver there just barely take away that third place from the fourth position. That was Eric Kulagas, so he's going to put himself into a podium position there for the Pro-Am category. The drivers you see right here, this is the Am category. Greg Brockway fallen quite a bit since leading the field to green there on lap number one. He's fourth position as they cross the start-finish line for lap number two. You can see Sasek up there, Matthew Plaisance. We see him doing a lot of practice time in one of the practice sessions, putting a lot of laps down.
Yeah, it's one of the cool shots that we can have for you, and I hope we get to interview him. I got to ask who's, because it looks like that one helmet behind him is autographed. I'm kind of curious who maybe that might be, but we see Matthew here navigating the course as he gets out onto NASCAR 1 here. Like I said, here's his chance to relax. You can see him even kind of taking a hand off the wheel and adjusting and getting comfortable. It's always nice to be up there and be able to just kind of take a breath for a second.
Yeah, certainly. If there's any spot, any racetrack where you wish you could just kind of lean over and take a sip of water, this is the one racetrack where you really have the opportunity to do that. Here you're looking at Eric Kulaga there on the right side of your screen, trying to see if he can't pull away that third position back there from Calais. Looks like Kelly's going to go around the outside and take that position there back from Kulaga, put himself up there into the podium spots for the Pro-Am League.
Yeah, and another thing too, we haven't really mentioned, we talk about the tire wear and the different braking points, but as you can see, the sun is setting here, and once that sun goes all the way, it'll be a very minor change considering where the sun is at now, but your braking points, everything will change too as night falls.
Yeah, that's right, and I'm so glad you brought that up too, John, because this is one of those racetracks where the shadows can get extremely long, and all of a sudden some things that you're used to looking at for different braking markers and things like that, they change so often at that point in the night. Where you can see the skyline here continues to get more and more of that orange kind of tinge you have that's right now just at the bottom edge, kind of towards the horizon. You can see this battle for first position continues to get hotter and hotter. finally does Boss believe he has enough of an overspeed there to get around the outside of Schneider. This will be the first time that Schneider hasn't led a lap. That last time by Kyle Boss is going around the outside. We'll see if he can continue this pass. Oh, he gets a little bit sideways. He's going to slow spin that car around. Lazy spin there, John, out of the Mercedes.
Yeah, just two cars trying to outbrake each other there, and you know, if you start braking too late, and the more pressure you got to put on that brake pedal, more opportunity for a little bit of a wheel lock, and it's so easy to lose the back end, and that's what happened there. But he's got time, plenty of time to work his way back up and get himself back into position here.
Yeah, that's right. He's got the better powder of, I'm going to say, about an hour and 7 minutes left in this race to try and get himself back up there to that third position where he started, especially maybe even that first position there that he was challenging for before he went into that lazy spin in turn one. And that's just one of those situations where he went into the corner just a little bit wide. He was also trying to go around the outside, trying to carry just a little bit more speed than I'm sure he was used to carrying. And, you know, this early in the race, you kind of can't blame a guy for at least trying to see what grip is around the outside there.
Yeah, and you know, in the rubber actually does lay down, and believe it or not, iRacing has made it where offline you can pick some marbles up on your tires, and that can add to your difficulties if you get offline here.
Certainly can. You can see right here, Braden Melling here running in 5th position in the Pro-Am category. And one of those drivers running that Ford GT car. Not too often do you see a Ford GT3 car really in any series on iRacing. But obviously these guys kind of resurrecting this old machine and giving it some more life here.
Yeah, it's good to see that Ford out there. You just you don't see too many guys run it anymore, and you know, I really like the Ford GTE cars. Those things were just fantastic. Don't really get an opportunity to drive them, but now we see guys getting a little argy-bargy here coming back into the International Horseshoe.
Yeah, you can see right there. It looked like at the moment Chase Wilson tried to go around the outside of Schneider as they all went into turn one. He got a little bit loose and then kind of had a door-to-door contact with his Mercedes teammate. I believe that is right now, that would be Harry Wills there. The two kind of doored each other as they went through that chicane just outside of turn one. Forced him just a little bit wide there for Pierce. So he looks like he was able to save that car, but still a little bit of argy-bargy there between the two teammates.
Yeah, and I've been telling my teammates for years now that if I, you know, that's a good teammate. If I get too hot into a corner and I got to door you to make the corner, that means you did a good job. But they still don't buy it. So I'm sure the etiquette's not too different here in road racing.
Christopher Johnson here for a two-wide battle. I believe that is Smith just ahead there. You can see he finally completes that pass now as they go into the second horseshoe there. Infield. And John, this is that portion of the track where this is really what's going to be the section chewing up those left side tires as the night goes on.
Yeah, it really is. A lot of braking, a lot of sharp turns, which means putting a lot of wheel, and the more wheel you use into a corner, the more it's going to chew those tires up here. So yeah, between the infield here and then that bus stop along the backstretch here, because that's really a high speed quick right and left. Should I say left and right?
Looking here at Mark Chapman, the number 18 car, trying to see if he can't quite hunt down there Eric Sasek just up the road. These two drivers in the AM category. So now head out onto NASCAR 1 and 2. It looked like he had a pretty good run there on him, John, in the infield, but you know, the cars can handle so much differently when you get out onto this faster paced section of the track, and it all just depends what kind of wing settings you have, how much drag or downforce you've tuned into this race car. Oh, look at Mark going for a big old slide there.
Man, and he saved that dead sideways. I may have to get a hold of him and put him on my dirt team. That was a heck of a save there, and he's able to continue on with, I'm going to assume, not losing too much ground there.
No, I mean, I'm sure he lost a second or two. He might be getting flanked here. We'll have to see if we can take another look at him there. Mark Chapman, it looks like he only got passed by one car. He gave up a whole lot of time, but I'm absolutely shocked he saved that car. I mean, he went from the pavement then to the grass, then back to the pavement, all in one fell swoop, and still held on to that thing. That is certainly probably going to be one of the most impressive saves we'll see all season. But having commentated multiple of these WSL GT3 leagues before, you're just going to continue to see saves like that pretty much all season. It's quite miraculous when you think about it.
Yeah, it really is, and you know, I haven't seen, and not just these guys, but on the road side of things here in iRacing, when you lose a car, and it's almost any car like that, usually it's sayonara, and really nice job there. But we're going to focus back in here a little bit. Here's we got a group of cars now approaching the bus stop, and they're kind of playing nice here and giving each other room, and looks like just to be clicking off some laps.
One car hard in the outside wall. Saw him there as Eric Kawaga just went by him. I can't quite tell who that was. Hard impact, though. Looks like it might have been a Ferrari. I think it was Chapman.
This is a tough hit nonetheless. That's going to be one where you're going to probably spend some time on pit road to get that machine fixed.
Yeah, well, especially there are no fast repairs in this league. This league is one car and done. You don't get to come down pit road, get the fast repair, get that thing tuned up by your pit crew, go back out on the track. You're going to have to spend the time to, you know, come down pit road and sit there while your virtual pit crew continues to wrench on that thing. As you see James Pierce all over his Twisted Racing teammate just up the road. Might be a little bit of RG barginess here between these two drivers. Bump drafting before they get to that bus stop, and a little bit of a lag out there just in time for the corner.
Yeah, and you know, these guys, they're teammates, so you know they're going to play nice with each other here. I mean, especially this early on in a race. I mean, still over an hour to go here. No reason at all to push any kind of issues here. So the leaders within sight, so they'll be good to go.
Oh, there was that car again that just made contact with the outside wall. Oh, Justin Rousseau. That's the driver that made the hard contact there coming out of the bus stop. You can see the Resolute on bringing that car down onto pit road. Kind of a pride thing at that point, John. This is a replay of what happened right about there. Just loses the car.
Yeah, it looked like he might have clipped that inside berm coming out of the bus stop and back onto the backstretch there. And when you do that, I mean, there's a bit of it's just not a quick little bump where, you know, the car can, that's a pretty big deterrent to get your car up there. When you do it, you lose it. And that is just a place on the track that you really don't get it back if you do that.
No, you never get it back, and if you do make any sort of mistake there, you're going to pay for it for the entire rest of the lap, pretty much until you hit turn one, like we saw there from Mark Chapman. But that's one of those places, John. Let's just talk to people at home through why you have to push in that set of corners so hard, and that's because it is so crucial to get that corner right, because it feeds the rest of the lap in your car. The faster you can get out of that one corner, I mean, you're basically flat out from the exit of the bus stop to turn one, and that's pretty much the longest part of the racetrack here. Pretty close from the exit, the infield section, to the bus stop, but, you know, again, you need to be so on your money, so on the mark out of that bus stop. Otherwise, you're just going to bleed time until you get to turn one.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. If you can't get a run out of that corner, you can lose a half a second on your lap time easy, if not more. But these guys seem to navigate that well. That bus stop's actually my favorite section on the track. I love going through that section, and but it's a very much a timing thing too from a driver's standpoint. So if you got somebody in front of you, or you just made a pass or something like that going into it, that can really upset your timing and give you fits to get through that little section.
And for so long here on iRacing, especially before this newer tire model in these road cars, it was mostly about muscle memory. You could go through that corner, and like you said, John, as long as your timing was okay, you didn't have a driver ahead of you either slowing you down or taking the downforce off your car, you didn't have a driver too close behind you pushing you, it was just muscle memory. I could go in that corner and just bang it out every time, you know, not perfect, but I mean 90-95% close to perfect, and just get a really good run through there. But the more these tires wear out, it is going to be harder and harder for these guys to go in that bus stop and repeatedly continue to nail that set of corners. As you can see, a whole lot of cars are battling a gaggle, if you will, for this sixth position here. Steven Martinez trying to go around the outside. You got that bright McLaren there just behind him with Scott.
Yeah, and I'm kind of also wondering. You mentioned the tires. If that's not why we've seen a couple of guys have some of those spins, that maybe they've fallen off just enough where, it's already now time to start backing your corners up a little bit to accommodate for that tire wear.
Well, that's what we heard from a couple of the drivers talking to them after some of the races last week. It's, up until that 15-minute mark, you can push the car as hard as you want, but as soon as you step over that boundary, it's like a light switch, man. All the grip out of those tires, it starts to flake away, and it's not instant. It's just you can start to notice it like a light switch, and then it continues to get progressively worse and worse as the run goes on.
Yeah, I actually broadcasted a race Saturday night, and the tire degradation was such where guys could, by the time they felt the tires going, it was too late. They were gone. And I don't think it's quite that bad here in the GT3, but once you do start feeling these tires go, they do start to burn off rapidly, and you start to use them more because you're sliding all over. You're trying to adjust constantly, so you're inadvertently creating degradation on those tires throughout the course.
Yeah, it's what we like to call a vicious circle there. Oh, one car on the outside there. Not quite sure who that was in the second of the horseshoes. Kind of just staying still there, letting the entire field go by. You saw riding along with James Pearson. I continue to be shocked, John, by just how much wheel he continues to put into that car, but still have tire life left at the end of some of these races.
Yeah, but that can be a little deceiving depending on, the type of wheel and what he's got them set at and things like that. Some guys want a really, tough wheel, like, where you have that real life feel. Some guys want to be able to move it around, and, that's all creature comfort when it comes to those things. Just like in real life, some guys like really fast steering boxes. Some guys like them a little slower, all creature comfort there.
Saw Blake Scott there getting down the inside. Trying to at least get around Eric Kulaga there, the driver just up the road. Of course, Blake in the 67 machine, Eric in that number 66 car. Those two drivers head now out of the infield section. Battle for the lead, as it were. Big old push from two of the twisted cars, practically bump drafting. As it were, tandem style like we used to see in NASCAR from about 2009 up until about 2011, trying to get him up and around there. The outside of John Schneider, not quite close enough. You can see those two twisted Lamborghinis continue to race side by side behind the leader. Now they're in second and third, and just behind those two Lamborghinis, there's another twisted racing machine. That is the Mercedes there of Harry Wills, the 95 car.
Yeah, and Wilson did a really nice job, because with that kind of shove down through the tri-oval, he was probably carrying a lot more speed than what he has in the past couple of laps, and to get that car turned there and not to lose that back end, that was a really nice job. Well done there.
Yeah, that tells me a couple things, though. A, those guys probably practice that every day, at least we're communicating the entire time. And B, I think John Schneider up ahead of those guys, he's just got a car that does absolutely phenomenal on these high-speed, fast sections there, NASCAR 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, because these guys are having a lot of trouble running him down, especially on these sections, and then passing him into these corners. John set himself up very well for some of those moves. Back further through the field, though, in the Pro-Am category, you can still see Kyle Smith. You've got Eric Kulaga in there, Steven Martinez. These guys are absolutely just roughing it out with each other.
Yeah, lots of traffic here, and it makes it fun. At least you're not out there just kind of tooling around on your own. You're competing and whatnot. And those are the kind of things that happen, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, it's time to pit, or well, really the race is coming to an end. It's nice to be busy, I think, to some extent.
Second time, we'll see if this time is the charm. If not, maybe this time, perhaps the next time by, the third time being the charm. Look at just how hard Wilson's going to enter this corner. Looks like John Schneider might have the advantage once again. We'll see if the two twisted Lamborghinis get side by side. Not quite. It probably took every ounce of patience in James Pierce's body to make sure he didn't quite get to the inside of that Lamborghini just up the road. He continues to go a little bit wide there, does Chase.
Well, I would have to think he probably heated those tires up a little bit, going to the outside like that after a big push in that turn one there. And, more temp in the tires, the more they want to slide around, and you don't quite get the grip that you're looking for out of them.
Running on board still here with James Pierce, the car that you see out in front of his windshield, Chase Wilson, that number 5 Lamborghini. Those two drivers' teammates trying to see if they can't hunt down the leader right now, take over position here of the lead. John Schneider doing an absolutely phenomenal job there in that Audi up there.
Yeah, I drove the Audi in the Chicago Street Circuit on Sunday night. That car, that was the first time I actually had driven that in race conditions, and I'm telling you, that car was a lot of fun to actually drive.
John, you were talking about, you know, the fun you can have when you're actually racing with guys. You have traffic out there on the race course. Our leaders right now, John Schneider, going to be the first person to catch up to a lap car, and it's not just in his own class; it's in a lower class. You see, it looks like an AM driver there. Can't quite make out the paint scheme to call out which driver that is, but again, staying high, letting all the faster cars go by on the inside of the track. Good heads-up driving, sportsmanship, blue flags there out of these guys.
Yeah, and you just want to kind of hold your lane, let those guys work around you. You know, the last thing you want to do if you do have the leaders coming up to you is make an abrupt lane change or something like that. That's when things can go off the rails real quick.
Yeah, certainly the biggest thing about this kind of thing is predictability. You want to make sure also, if you're the faster guy coming up behind too, that you know, you don't second guess your moves. You make a decision and you stay there and make sure that guy ahead of you knows where you're going to be when you intend to pass him, just to make sure that there is no miscommunication out here on the race course going about the better part of, you know, 150 mile an hour.
Yeah, and you cover a lot of ground in a short period of time, and yeah, that you don't have a whole lot of time to react to something that becomes very unpredictable.
John, you talked about how close the racing is, and there continues to be battles pretty much all around the racetrack. I would really say we are quite spoiled for choice when it comes to which driver battle we want to see on track at any given time. And I feel like this is just a true testament to the amount of talent in this pool that the World Series leagues have, and especially you know, the camaraderie and the distance between all these drivers and lap times with the different class systems. You see Pajev Carollo making hard contact there with the outside wall, kind of the same thing we saw with the Ferrari earlier in the race.
Yeah, and a lot of the thing is you're actually putting wheel in.
Oh, what, two cars going sideways.
That Chris Long there in the BMW, and I don't know that they're going to have a whole lot of damage here, but I can tell you one thing they're going to have is probably a little bit of how should we say it, a disagreement.
No love lost. Yeah, disagreement, the best way to put that.
Yep. Let's just hope their haulers aren't parked next to each other in the virtual pits there, and we should be good.
I love that. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, let's make sure that those two guys haven't quite set up shop next to one another. This battle here for the pro lead continues to be hot and heavy. Two drivers contesting it. You see all three of the Twisted drivers running second through fourth on the racetrack. John Schneider continues to have the lead of this race. You can see, John, why he put that car on pole. He's proven to be quite the adversary when it comes to overall speed on track here tonight.
Yeah, he is here, and he's doing a really nice job of just hitting his marks every time, and that's not always easy. I mean, you know, it's so easy to have that tendency to maybe look up in your mirror and see where somebody is, and that can lead to you missing your marks, and next thing you know, you're falling from first to second to maybe even third, as close as these guys are. One mistake could take you, and you could lose 3 or 4 spots.
Yeah, looking off the rear end there of Jacob Schneider, you can see his rear wing and all the Twisted racing machines following behind him. And it's very interesting that you see, too, these guys so close on his rear end. We might have a pass for position here. We'll see how well Jacob Schneider can get out of this corner, get a strong run here, especially in NASCAR 3 and 4. And look at how much he's going to actually pull away just a little bit from that Lamborghini in behind him. Right here, this is where you can see on both cars in high gear.
Yeah, and they're pushing 160, 165 mile an hour right here. And, man, you know, the thing is about these cars, you know, the NASCAR counterparts, when you pull out, it creates a slingshot effect. You can actually use that momentum to get around. But here, when you pull out, it is like deploying a parachute. You lose that so quick here. It's really tough to use the slingshot with these cars. But look at this, the inside.
Here. Yeah, you got Pierce down the inside of Jacob Schneider there. Looks like Schneider forced to fall back into second, so move Jacob into second position, move James Pierce there into the lead.
Yeah, just one little mistake there, and I'll be honest with you,
Oh,
he's,
contact between the two. There goes Pierce sliding into the corner. Jacob Schneider, hard contact into the tire barrier.
Now that is going to be two drivers not exchanging Christmas cards this year. That's for sure. That's an unfortunate turn of events for our leaders, but we still have a great battle for the lead. That's going to be Mr. Wills here. He inherits the lead.
Chase Wilson just behind him, and John, that's one of those moments I really wish I had the driver chat turned on, because you could see almost immediately both those drivers key up on the mic, and it's hard to tell in that situation. I would assume it's nice and it's good natured, like, hey, that was my bad, and oh, don't worry about it. But sometimes in iRacing especially, you never know that racing that close, and for what's on the line here for this overall championship, and especially just the prestige of winning a race here in WSL, it is extremely hard to do, and these guys are very proud, as they should be, about winning a race. So you never know, it might bring out the worst in somebody. There can often be some heated exchanges between two drivers.
Yeah, and you also have been in situations, I know I've been in situations where, okay, a mistake is made and you have a driver apologize for it, and it can be a sincere apology, but I'll be honest, you don't want to hear it. I mean, there's times where you still wreck me and I'm not happy about it. It doesn't just turn off because you hear an I'm sorry, and man, that one there. I hope they have a conversation there and come to some kind of understanding. I'm sure they probably will. I touched on this earlier on in the broadcast. It's a long season, getting bent out of shape early and starting a list short, so to speak. It's pretty early to start getting on people's lists.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it's one of those situations where I really appreciate your apology and the fact you took time to say one, but it doesn't fix my car, it doesn't get me back out on the lead lap, and it doesn't get me my track position for where I was. But it's one of those situations where, once you make a move, you can't really undo it, and people do make mistakes. Everybody is human. As much as you wish you weren't, or that everybody was perfect, or at least you yourself were perfect, there's nothing you can do about it.
No, there's really not. But well, that's in the rearview mirror now. We've got quite a long way left to go here, and then we're approaching about the time that they would have in one of their normal races here. So I got a feeling I would have to think pit stops may not be too far off in the horizon. If you're wanting to split up the race here, and having that one stop, maybe that pit window will be opening in the next maybe 5 minutes, 6 minutes.
Yeah, I think we're getting pretty darn close to it. The fuel is actually limited in this series, actually, at least for this track today, to 60% of what it normally would be. So you can't quite go the entire stint length of 1 hour like you're used to seeing around here in the Daytona 24 hours, the Rolex 24 in real life. So these cars kind of limited to maybe just 60% of that overall hour, so kind of that 40-minute mark. Or so. So you can definitely do the race in one stop, but this is kind of where you got to start thinking, if I'm going to have to come down pit road and take a full tank of fuel, 60% at least, how much time am I going to spend down there? And now that you can take tires and fuel at the exact same time, how many tires do you want to change? And do you want to change tires at all?
Boy, I think I'd be wanting tires just based on what we heard last week. And I'm sure these guys have done a lot of testing here throughout this week here to kind of get more of a feel, because I think the tire were surprised a few of them based on our interviews. So the competition here, I mean, these guys are all really good. They do their due diligence. So I'm sure that they've got, they know what's going to be going on. But the question is, you never know how the race unfolds here. We talk about undercuts and stuff like that. Now this is where race strategy comes in. Not so much, okay, I'm trying to get this on one stop, or hey, this is where we're going to take fuel. Now it's, well, do we want to get fuel and tires, see if we can make up some ground on somebody or whatnot. So right now is a time when you're making choices, should I say, on what to do here.
Yeah, you can see
There you go.
Harry Wills, Chase Wilson. This were the drivers in first and second position, the two Twisted Racing teammates, obviously bringing their two cars down onto pit road. So now Alex Murray is going to inherit the lead. We'll see how many other drivers, John. And now that these two guys are coming down to pit road, does this maybe force a lot of other drivers' cards? You can see a lot of guys coming down onto pit road and leaving their boxes this early in the race. So we might be looking at here a two-stopper, especially with given the tire wear around this joint.
Yeah, and like I said, I knew that you had to start thinking about pits here pretty soon here, and they're coming actually a little quicker than sooner than what I thought. But look at that! Someone's gonna, boy, I don't know if he overshot the for the pit lane there.
Close.
It sure was. I'll be interested to see if they don't hold him for an extra couple of seconds there for speeding, but he might have gotten slowed down in time.
Yeah, I will say, by and large, there is a rule, especially when you come to Daytona Speedway for the 24-hour race of, there's a couple kinks there in the white line on the apron as you come down to pit road. I think it's the second one of those kinks is when you really just lift your foot completely off the gas and mash the brake as hard as possible. And if you do it just right, the car slows down about maybe to pit road speed about 5 or 6 feet before you actually get there. So, there is a place, and every driver knows it, at every track of where they have to absolutely just stop on the brake pedal here, throw the anchor out the side of the car to get that thing slowed down before they come down to pit road, just to make sure you don't have to serve a time penalty.
Yeah, and the friends and family and folks that don't have iRacing, you keep in mind too, you're on a banking doing 160 through there with all the previous laps, and even when you decide to come to pit road, you're doing 160, and you got to get down to 45 mile an hour. That's a big adjustment and a lot of speed to have to scrub in a fairly short amount of time.
Yeah, and especially when you get down to pit road speed limit in these cars, when, John, like you said, you're doing the better part of maybe 180 mile an hour before you throw out the anchor for turn one. It's that same feeling you get when you turn off of a freeway, maybe an interstate going about the better part of 75 mile an hour, and you turn into a residential zone. That's that, triple the speed difference that you're seeing, because it just seems like you're going as slow as molasses when you get off the freeway there, and all of a sudden you have this 35 mile an hour speed limit being imposed.
Yeah, and the other thing about the pits, we're talking about how sketchy it can be coming into the pits. Well, let's talk about leaving the pits there. That pit road bends around turn one, and I don't know about you, Austin, but confidentially, I've done this a couple times. I have put the nose of that car into that pit wall right there, right in that little corner. So you got to kind of be careful getting off the pit road too.
I have done that a couple times. There is a reason why in Western PA iRacing, the team John and we both race for, that wall is called the Wall of Austins. Kenny and I are a mutual friend, a streamer. We were doing a race here, and I may or may not have come out of pit road about a second or two ahead of Kenny and put my car in the fence right there and blocked pit road off for him. So he pretty much had to park his car with me.
Yeah, like I said, there's plenty of landmines here around this track, and these guys have all done very well here in navigating it. And we're kind of cruising on through this race here, and we've already gone through one cycle, and the sky now is pretty much dark, and so these guys now are using completely different markers and whatnot to use as their braking points out on track. And it takes just a little bit of time to get used to, but if you really have got a lot of laps here, it's an easier process for those that, let's say, don't have a lot of experience here.
Yeah, it certainly is. This track is pretty much like second nature. It's almost like riding a bicycle when you've done so many laps here. It doesn't matter what you're kind of forced through, whether it's day to night changes or maybe racing with other cars trying to lap them and put them a lap down, or even racing with somebody else, like you saw Blake Scott there trying to see if he couldn't get around and catch up to Calais just up the road. I will say, though, a couple seasons ago, this is especially when I made my mistake, the pit road is a lot different compared to what it used to be. It used to be when you left the pit road that NASCAR uses, you were pretty much unrestricted on speed. Anymore, you have to keep your pit road speed limiter on until you get around that chicane there. So you see Daniel Tenorio there with a absolutely bashed in front end on his Porsche.
Yeah, That damage will not only impact the handling, but that's going to impact your top straight line speed through the NASCAR portions of this track, and that's going to be a big disadvantage.
Yeah, I believe that just how slow he's kind of taking that car around. I feel like he's got some major suspension damage on the front end of that Porsche as well. We'll have to see if he just brings that car down onto pit road and how long it takes him to get that thing repaired. We can go ahead and consult the meatball list here. And for right now, I only see Jacob Schneider and Kyle Boss as the two cars, the two and both co-drivers with meatballs here in this race.
And we see Tenario here, Daniel Tenario, in his car get kind of turned around here and trying to very slowly back it up. And how about this for iRacing? You actually pick up grass and stuff on your tires, so he is actually going to have to clean his tires off when he gets back on the track before he gets any kind of grip back into that car. So that's one of the cool things too about sim racing. It's just a lot of detail goes into it to make it as close to the real life counterparts as what we can.
Yeah, you could see that was the replay there, why Daniel Tenorio's front end of his Porsche was so bent in. And it looks like he just lost the car going into the bus stop. Very easy to do. I can't tell you the amount of times in practice I have nosed the car front end first into those tire barriers. It's extremely easy to do, especially when you're pushing this hard like these guys are.
Yeah, and with it being a little bit later, the thing is you're making more grip, you're making more power with the motors and all that kind of stuff. So you might be going in to that corner maybe 3-4 mile an hour faster than what you were maybe earlier in the day, and that can change your braking points. And I'll tell you, I've done it a few times. You carry too much speed into that bus stop, it gets pretty sketchy pretty quick.
Yeah, it certainly does, especially with these guys on sort of worn-out tires. Getting word here from director-producer Daniel Costello. It looks like at least for the P1 driver, the driver in first place in the pro category, they took about 10 seconds less for them than the rest of the grid. And that's why you see Harry Wills out there with such a large lead there over the rest of the field. Ethan Bass, was Ethan. That took a much shorter pit stop. That's why he leapfrogged most of the other pro drivers in his class.
Yeah, maybe Ethan didn't take the tires.
Yeah, either didn't take the tires or maybe he's short fueling on this pit stop rather than the second one. We'll have to see, of course, if you come down pit road after the first half hour, you take another half hour's worth of fuel. You got to come back down at just about the hour mark. Then you're taking maybe 30% of a full fuel load, and there is a big advantage to being that driver out there with all the clean air in the world to maybe short pitting your second stop and then long pitting your second. Your short pit your first stop and long pit your second. Excuse me.
Yeah, the big I think from a strategic standpoint on that second stop is do you put tires on them, because the second one is such a short stint between after you come out of the pits and to the end of the race. That's going to be the one that should prove to have a little drama in there. Who does that and who doesn't?
Yeah, I kind of have to imagine maybe, if you're Ethan, and we have the opportunity to ask him. I hope we remember to ask if he changed to 4 tires or just to 2, and maybe he's going to change 2 tires on the first stop and the other 2 on the second stop. I'd be genuinely very curious to see what was his process going through there for Mr. Ethan Bass, our leader currently in the pro category.
And I'll tell you too, watching these guys get around this track, it makes me already miss doing the 24-hour race. This track is just so much fun to navigate and to do. And of course, we did it in the BMW LMP division car this past year, and man, that was a blast.
Yeah, I've done this race in both the GT3 car Mercedes back when I did it with the A. Rogers 51 team, and then the last year I did with Western Pig. The last couple of years we've been in the prototype, so it's a lot of fun. This track is probably one of the best road course races on iRacing, and certainly of all the endurance race events for the entire year, my absolute favorite, hands down, gotta be.
Yeah, and it's funny. When I first did the race here, did the 24 hours, and That was absolutely the most fun I've had in iRacing to that point, and it really surprised me. And I've gone back now and done it. I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years since now. We've even got a couple of podiums doing it, and it is always special watching these cars go around. And next year when I'm watching you guys do it, man, I'm telling you that's going to be hard.
Nah, I'm sure we'll get you to pull your helmet there off the shelf and come race with us again.
I'm done.
Nah, you say that now. We'll get you, John. We'll get you. You can see Rich Calais out there in the 4th position there for the Pro-Am category. It looks like there Scott might have just gotten around him. You can see he's got Smith all over the rear end of him with another BMW. So they got that Lamborghini and the BMW sandwich at the moment.
Yeah, and it's got the one thing that's nice about having the 3 different divisions and all the same cars. We talk about the 24-hour. We have different actually makes of cars and different speeds. So the closing rate when you come up to a GT3 car is a whole lot different than a GTE or one of the smaller prototypes. Here, everybody is on the same program. So when they do approach people, sure, there's probably going to be a little bit of a speed difference, but there's not a huge one like what you would see in multi-class racing.
Yeah, some of the prototypes can actually lap about 5, 6, even 10 seconds a lap faster than the majority of these GT3 cars. And again, you do get the different talent, kind of fields and classes with some of these drivers. But by and large, those prototypes absolutely fly around here. And, these GT3 cars aren't slouches either. These go a whole heck of a lot quicker than any normal road-going car you would normally see, but it is a true testament to how much those prototypes can absolutely fly around any sort of a racetrack.
Yeah, and we're here at Daytona, but Le Mans is too on the schedule, and that's another track too that's just fantastic for these cars. So we got an exciting season here at WSL, and a lot of different tracks we're going to go to, a lot of which may not quite be as world famous as the Daytona Speedway here, but a lot that have probably more history even than what Daytona has. And man, I just can't wait for each of these rounds to come up.
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting. You can see Alex Murray here as we ride on board with him, trying to see if he can't hunt down the car just up the road. That's Chase Wilson in the Lamborghini up there. Trying to see if he can't get a good draft on him. Not quite fast enough or close enough to get a run to make that pass down there as they go through that bus stop chicane. We'll see if he can get a better run here through Daytona, through NASCAR turns 3 and 4. You can see slowly but surely starting to reel that car up the road in.
To see him creep, but a little bump to keep him going. And yeah, you just don't see that, I don't think, anywhere but here. And at least in the NASCAR side of things, they kind of reinforce those bumpers because they intend to use them. Now, these bumpers aren't exactly reinforced, so you better not go up there and actually pop them too hard. You could get yourself a little damage, and that could slow you down on some of these high-speed sections.
Yeah, you certainly don't want to have any damage, on the front end of your car. In this case, it's Alex Murray's body. And, if you're that driver in front, maybe you don't necessarily want to stay down there and block that guy behind you before he does any sort of damage to maybe your rear diffuser or that rear fascia. And those rear fascias, all these cars are basically perfectly shaped to go ahead and direct the air into all the places that they would like it to. So any sort of deviation from that perfect set, that body in white, if you will, is just going to slow you down. As you can see, it looks like Calais taking that position right back there from Smith.
Boy, still lots of traffic though, man. Lots of traffic for far in the race here. So these guys have all done a good job of keeping in touch with each other and providing some good racing for us.
Yeah, and from here on out, business is only going to pick up. The longer that these guys are out on track, the longer you give those fast guys to go ahead and lap faster than the slower guys. These pro guys are probably going to start, getting hot and heavy with the traffic here from the AM category and then the Pro-Am category. Out there for the Pro-Am, it's going to be just before the end of the race for that AM category. I would assume within maybe the next 10 minutes or so, they might catch up to the rear end of that AM field.
Yeah, and then that's where mistakes sometimes can be made. You try driving a little bit deeper to make a move, or you make a move and then somebody else might could by getting out of your way, their car might do something that's unpredictable for them, and next thing you know, they're either turned around in front of you or they're coming maybe back down the track into your lane. Anytime you get offline, especially after you've run this many laps, there is a little bit of unpredictability if you get offline to let one of those guys by.
Well, yeah, I mean, not only is it just you never probably have practiced going about, corner entry and exit the way you're getting prepared to, but also as soon as you go offline, it's really hard to tell because of the camera angle, but there's marbles as soon as you go offline at this track with how many laps they've already put down. When we say marbles, for you folks at home, maybe if you're not, very attuned to different racing terminology, when we say marbles, it's basically just balled up pieces of rubber that comes flying off the cars, and it basically sticks to the track wherever the cars aren't running. So as soon as you go offline from where you want to run, you start to get in those marbles, and it behaves just like the name implies. It's like if you got in your road car and went out and tried to drive over a bunch of glass marbles like you'd have maybe in a kid's playground toy.
Yeah, and if you watch F1 broadcasts, a better term for that too is also the clag around the track. So we talk about tire wear. Well, the tire wears off, and it's got to go somewhere. And yeah, it's all around this track. And I can see it even in that shot there. There's quite a bit out there.
And there's a lot. It's almost getting close to maybe I'd say a Dover International Speedway there for the NASCAR terms, where these guys get under caution. The tires cool down. They just start picking up all the rubber that's been laid down on the tracks. It's literally like putting tire tracks, from blackness. You tear that thing up. You can then see the white concrete. That's the native track surface, and it's quite astonishing. You talk about tire wear, like you said, John. All that rubber has to go somewhere.
Yeah, and that's where the unpredictability that I was talking about comes in. You get in there, and all of a sudden your car will lose grip. So if you're expecting to put the wheel in it and be able to hook the outside of the track, maybe the front tires don't turn. You might want to, the nose of the car might start heading off track, or as you gas it up coming out of the corners, there's no traction with the back wheel. So next thing you know, the back end of the car is wanting to come around. So as they work traffic, there's some perils there. I mean, most people here are experienced enough to handle that, but just sometimes that there you go, one into the wall. That's not a hard hit, but that's going to probably be one that's going to affect the back end aero of that car.
And not just that, I mean, if the car isn't hurt that much on the rear end, you can see Dean Timms right now forced to take an outside move there as he, goes down the inside. I believe that's Taylor Lane. He might have just passed, I believe. Kai Dizelle, that's my bad. Kai Dizelle in that Twisted Racing Lamborghini just in behind him.
Yeah, and this is getting on too. Another thing we haven't touched on, we probably should at some point here, fatigue. Fatigue will come in, and as we got another second pit stop for Ethan Bass that just started, but fatigue can start to set in here too. Get a little tired right and left. I mean, if your room that you're in is not, it's too warm or whatever, you can start getting really, really hot pretty quick. And so be watching maybe for some of these guys maybe to lose a little bit of concentration here too the second half of the race.
And John, it looks like just as we suspected there, race leader before he went down on the pit road, Ethan Bass, has just come down to make his second pit stop. So it looks like he did go for a bit of a shorter stint the second time around, the second stint, second time around, and now goes for a longer third stint after his second pit stop there. So, and it looks like he took all four of his tires there too. So this is the strategy that Ethan is choosing. So you can see Blake Scott racing for the lead right here with Venica Tukajaru.
They're getting a little argy there coming through that corner a little bit, and neither driver really wanting to give up too much on this one here. And a little bit of a shot as they go through the International Horseshoe there.
Yeah, BMW on Audi action. This is a live look here. Chase Wilson as they go through the bus stop. This is the battle for right now the overall lead here in the pro category, as is the rest of the race. You can see Shreya is putting up quite the fight there for the lead in the pro-am category from Blake Scott just behind. You can see this is just the true power here that we can have with Daniel Costello giving us side-by-side action. Not very often. You can see iRacing stream side-by-side racing going on two halves of the screen.
Yeah, and Wills is really holding a nice line here, and you know, that Mercedes is really. Oh, and look at that! I was gonna say he looks a little loose going in there, and boy, he did.
A handful of opposite lock there for Harry. He's forced to give up both the first and the second position. He's going to slot himself back right now into the third spot. So obviously the rear axle of that car doesn't quite have the grip that Harry is expecting. And boy, that turn one area, it's so hard to manage putting the power down because you're going so fast. Just seconds before you slow the car down from about maybe 180 mile an hour to below 60, and you feel so slow you just want to get that power down and get off that corner, especially to set yourself up nicely for the chicane. And you know, with the kind of heat he's got in his tail from his Twisted Racing teammate in that Lamborghini, Chase Wilson behind, but also Alex Murray, who's he's been giving Chase quite the tail here, quite the battle in that auto.
Yeah, and wasn't it Murray that went off in the lap 1-2 incident? I think it was.
I remember. I don't think you're wrong though, John. You can see side by side as they go in the bus stop. Out of the last breakers here, it looks like for right now. Oh, one car off the track ahead of him, hard into the inside tire barrier. Lost the entire front clip of that car. Good heads-up driving by all of our leaders to avoid him. Sorry, John.
Yeah, that's almost what I like to call a Code Brown moment there. You come through there and someone's sitting there, and you take a deep breath and hope they don't move.
Yeah, could have explained it better. You just hope that that guy knows which of his two pedals in the brakes and that he holds it side-by-side battle here. That's Shreyas on the outside, Blake Scott down to the inside. This is the battle for the lead in the Pro-Am category. Audi up top, BMW on the bottom. Looks like barely Blake was able to clear himself. We'll see if the momentum can shift back towards the high side. Now who's the last of the late breakers? Looks like it's going to be Blake Scott. He's going to have the lead right now, but it's all going to come down to can Shreyas mount a charge here coming out of the bus stop. I think this time by just a little bit too far back, even with all the drafting help he's going to get.
Yeah, I think so, but I think he'll be able to close up and get pretty close to his bumper by the time they get down to turn one, though. He should be close enough to get that draft.
Yeah, close enough to get the draft. We'll see if he's close enough to mount a charge, or at least make it too wide as they get down there. Looks like he's not quite going to get close enough to even pull out to get that spotter to call either car left or car right. So for right now, Blake Scott going to hold on the lead. Shreyas forced to continue to ride around there in that second position as you see Andrew Houston going around the outside. I want to say that is Eric. No, that is Calais there. In that Lamborghini. So this is for the third position there, last podium spot in the Pro-Am category.
Yeah, and I'm seeing these cars sliding around a little bit. So the guys that took those tires about a half hour ago, I think they're starting to feel some give here, and they got a handful of steering wheel trying to hang on to their second and the final pit stop here.
Yeah, I'll be really interested to see how many drivers come down pit road and get those 4 fresh feel goods before the end of this race here, because it's getting pretty darn close here. These guys starting to come down pit road. Second half-hour stint almost complete. You see Rich Kelly there down to the inside of Houston.
Yeah, and the big question is let's just say it takes an extra 3 seconds to put those tires on. Can you make that 3 seconds back up and then some before the end of the race to make it worth it to take those tires? If you don't think you can make up those 3 seconds on new tires, you know, you got to better be paying attention to your lap times and everything else. Then no, you don't take the tires. Man, that is some close racing coming through the bus stop. But yeah, if you can't, don't think you can make up that time, you just ride with what you got.
Yeah, I can probably count on my hand how many times I've seen two drivers go side by side through the entirety of the bus stop, and that was one of them right there. So absolutely phenomenal driving between Andrew Houston and then Mr. Calais there down to the inside. These guys have Eric Kulaga right now coming up behind him. So it looks like Rich right now and Andrew have their hands full.
Man, and they like going side by side in the toughest parts of the track too. Going around the outside there in turn one is very, very difficult. I mean, there's a lot of marbles out there. But he couldn't make it work. He'll tuck back in, and maybe he'll try to get a run coming up on NASCAR when they come out to NASCAR 1.
Yeah, that is genuine no square territory right there on the outside, especially side by side. These guys are going side by side in the exact wrong places that you'd hope. And just as soon as it looks like they're single file, it looks like Houston just shoved the car down to the inside of Rich Kelly there, and Rich kind of left the door open just a smidge, and Andrew filled the spot. So we'll see. Oh, they're going to continue to race side by side as they go out up on the NASCAR 1.
And that's another difficult spot to go. Like I said, I thought he'd wait till here to see if he could get a run on him coming out of that corner, but he didn't wait. He did it in the other horseshoe there, and we'll see if he dives down. There he goes, going to try to outbrake him going into the into the bus stop here.
Yeah, I'll tell you who's in the catbird seat right now. That's the man behind these two drivers, Eric Kulaga. If he plays his cards right, he's going to get double the drafting help that he would normally get, and that might just propel him there to pass both these drivers. I was able to do that once in the league race. You just kind of get to them side by side, get a huge run, and just pass them going into the tournament. It doesn't quite look like Eric will be able to take advantage of that situation right here, but certainly the next couple laps or so would not be too surprised if Eric pulled a 2-for-1.
Yeah, he's closed up on him here a little bit. And I mean, the big thing is this, now that Houston has gotten around into second place, will he pull away from Kelly at all here? And if he does, then what Kalaga's got to work with will lessen a little bit. He's not going to get that big draft. He's just going to have to work with the draft off of Calais.
Yeah, certainly. These are all things that I'm sure all these drivers are thinking about lap after lap after lap, and sometimes it just comes down to setup, and sometimes it is just down to car preference and how much you wrench on these cars on a week-to-week basis. Building setups. You see Aaron Beaver brings his Mercedes Aerotechnics 4-car down pit road.
And that will be his final stop of the night too, and he pulls it in too from second place though, so he's given up a podium spot here to take his pit stop.
Yeah, just inside about 20 minutes to go here left in the race session. You can see the time in the upper left-hand corner of your screen around the 56th minute of 1 hour and 15 minutes overall. So 75-minute endurance race for these drivers.
Yeah, and for those that do decide to take the tires with the time that's left on the board, you can run all out. You don't have to worry about trying to maintain your tire, try to keep the degradation down low. You can just go and stand on it.
Looks like Rich Calais is going to make up another spot. Eric Kulaga now and Andrew Houston, both those drivers going to come on down to pit road. I would not be too surprised here if Eric Kulaga is going to get a penalty here for speeding onto pit road, so we'll have to keep our eyes kind of tuned in to that battle. You can see Chase Wilson continues to run in second place. He's got his Twisted Racing teammate there of Harry Wills just behind. Up the road is a man who was riding around in third place, and then before that in fifth place. So for the majority of this race, he's been kind of on the back burner. I feel like he's been saving his stuff, just waiting in the weeds, as has Alex Murray.
Yeah, and there's something to be said too for just kind of pacing yourself, trying to figure out where you're good at, where you're not, and then waiting to the end here and then figuring out, okay, that you're just going to capitalize on where you're good, try to limit your mistakes where you're maybe not quite as fast, and especially in and around pit stops, you can do that. You can make up a significant amount of time if you do it properly. And Plaisance is pitted from the lead of the AM division too.
Yeah, you can see that on the left-hand side of your screen. So Matthew Plaisance has that green pit exit there on his screen. So he's now leaving the pits. You can see Swan has just come down into them. There is Matthew Plaisance in his Ferrari. So it looks like he's pretty much on track to have a really nice day out here. That's a look of his in-car. You can see just the absolute focus and intent on his face to go ahead and put that car everywhere he needs to, lap after lap, clocking that thing in the better part of, I don't know, about 150 degrees.
Yeah, and like I said, the wheel input. It all depends on how you have everything set up here, and then each driver kind of has their own way of doing it. And it's all creature comfort, you know. Whatever a comfortable driver can be a fast driver. So both in the real world and in here. So you want to make sure you got everything just the way you want it.
This is another look at that P2 position. This is Chase Wilson. He's still got his Twisted Racing teammate of Harry Wills just in behind him, and then you can see 0.7 of a second there up the road is Alex Murray. So even after the pit stop, all three of these drivers still extremely close together, especially when considering they've been racing for almost an hour since the drop of the green flag, John.
Yeah, and again, I touched on this earlier, a little bit of fatigue, and I'm not talking, oh, you know, your arms are going to fall off, or you know, the stuff that you would, you know, normally think of. The fatigue is the focus, because, you know, everything what you do here is so mental. The breaking points and all that, that's all from visual, those are all visual cues, and you've got to just stay sharp all the way through the race here to maintain your speed and to keep hitting those marks correctly.
This is a ride on board Alex Murray's machine, looking out over the rear end of his car. You can see through that rear wing on the back end of his car, the two cars chasing him very closely at the moment. Chase Wilson, Harry Wilson, those two drivers getting closer and closer together, and if they start fighting, that is the first thing that Alex wants to see, apart from maybe that white and then checkered flag before the end of this race here. So those two cars in his mirror battling it out, because the more they're racing each other, the slower those two cars are going to be. So Harry not quite onto the rear bumper there, Chase Wilson, but getting closer and closer as time goes on.
Yeah, and they've got, you know, when you to this point of the race, that last 15 minutes is going to go by real quick. So they've got to get situated back there and formulate a plan. And working together at this point actually would probably behoove them to reel them in.
It certainly would, but John, I'm not going to call you wrong. I'm just going to play the devil's advocate here. If you're on old, worn-out tires and your car is just understeering into the corner and oversteering out of the corner, these last 15 minutes are going to be the longest of the race, possibly the longest of your life, because when your car is not performing the way you'd like it to, the laps just seem to drag on forever and ever and ever, as do the minutes.
Well, you're absolutely right, and that actually comes down to your point of view. If you're in a transfer side, if you're in a podium spot, the last 15 probably go by, takes forever. You're like, oh my God, how am I going to keep a handle on this car for the next 15 minutes? But if you're one of the guys chasing them, that 15's got to go by quick. Doesn't matter how bad their cars are handling, they're trying to run them down.
Yep, the sort of, the dual kind of stances you're going to see in racing as time goes on. You see Harry Wills there, Kai Diesel, just exiting the pit. This is Ethan Bass. He's the driver that decided to do that short pit stop the first time around, and the long pit stop the second time around. Looks like he's going to recover quite nicely from that strategy. Done really well for himself. But Daniel, if we could take a look at here, this battle for, I believe P3 and 4 in the Pro-Am category. You switch to it just in time to see, I believe Rich Calais went around the outside of Andrew Hewson to the kink. These guys, talking about, John, running side by side in places you don't want to do that. You certainly never want to go too wide. I don't care if you're passing a slower car, you're in a prototype passing a GT3 car, you never go side by side in the kink.
Well, you don't. But what I've seen from these guys tonight, getting away and racing each other with respect, I think they can race anywhere on this track and pull it off. I mean, these guys have done a fantastic job tonight in some places that I personally probably wouldn't even think about putting my car.
No, I wouldn't do it. But again, this is the kind of trust you can have in a league racing scenario. And John, I know you feel the same way. This is exactly why league racing is, I'm just going to say, some of the best on the entire iRacing platform, is because you know who you're going to the corner with, side by side with that guy. You can trust that he's not just going to run into the door of your car because he threw the car in there, just being silly on his part. You can see Alex Murray exiting the pits right now as well.
Yeah, and that actually leads to a lot more fun, because I'll tell you, guys that I trust in some of the leagues that I run, I'll race them harder than anybody else. I mean, you know, door to door, inches apart. It is so much fun. When you're doing open servers and you kind of got to give the extra room and you don't know who's around you, that can be a bit rattling, to say the least. But these guys have just, like, right here you go. The one looking to the inside, I thought they might think about taking them too wide again through the horseshoe. And like I said, most other places that I've seen, and God knows I wouldn't do it myself, they've done it tonight, and they've pulled it off and done just a job well done for these guys.
Yep, and I can tell you what, John, you and I have had that exact same experience racing on some of the short track ovals that we have in probably the Gascade Modified. It's the first car I can think of, you know, I know John's going to race me hard, but I know he's going to race me clean. So at that point, you know, I'm kind of okay to just have fun with it and race him for these positions here.
Yeah, and that's what these guys are doing out here. I mean, they can go at each other here fairly hard, and sometimes mistakes will happen, but it's a lot easier when a mistake happens from a guy that, you know, hey, doesn't make a whole lot of them. Those are a whole lot easier to get through, but when you're around guys that you don't trust and they do something, it can look, it'd be an identical mistake, yeah. You don't want to hear nothing from nobody at that point in time, but we are winding down here. We're under 10 minutes now to play here.
We continue to ride on board here with Rich Calais. He's got Andrew Hewson and that Twisted Motorsport BMW just up the road. These are the two guys that have been side by side so much in this race. Tries to be the out-braking maneuver there, just Rich down to the inside. It looks like Andrew Hewson's not having any of it. We'll see if he can get a good run here. I reckon they're going to be side by side, John, going into the bus stop again.
Yeah, well, that move there cost him a little bit through that corner coming up on an NASCAR 1. Luckily for him, he has a draft that's going to pull him back up, and here we go. It's going to be a game of chicken here. Who breaks first?
Yeah, try to do the over-under there. Did Rich Calais. They're going to go side by side through the bus stop once again. You can see they continue to go side by side. Look like they're Rich Calais not quite the run around the interior part of that bus stop, so forced him to get just lose out a little bit of a second there. Between these two guys, you've got Chris Johnson here in this BMW just behind. Rich Calais is going to go a little bit wide. He's going to allow Chris Johnson to his inside. There's three cars right now battling for this last step on the podium.
Oh, yeah, and there's not a whole lot of time
by
left.
The way,
to.
Yeah, here's Eric Kulaga. He's going to make it 4 cars.
Oh, he drove that in way deeper. Houston drove that in, and boy, I don't know how he kept that car under him, but what a nice job there. And I think that probably scared everybody a little bit behind him there.
Man, you could Rich Calais drove that car down there into the center of the corner, and Chris Johnson was having absolutely none of it. I know he got that call down, car right, but he didn't care. He just took that right corner, went all the way down to the apex, was not going to give Rich Calais a whole lot of room. So I'd be kind of curious there, maybe a little bit scared if I'm Andrew Hewson, the fact that it doesn't look like Chris Johnson's going to take anything from anybody here.
Yeah, well, we saw last week how that race played out, so we're shaping up for another barn burner of a finish. But last week, everybody was kind of on the track and all in the same thing, but we got 3 divisions here tonight, so we might get 3 fantastic finishes, one right after another.
Yeah, boy, wouldn't that be something if we could have, basically 3 identical duplicates of what happened last week. That would be absolutely insane. You can see Dean Timms here trying to hold off Taylor Lane. This is going back to that 3rd position battle in the Pro-Am category. Hewson continues to lead right here over Chris Johnson, then Rich Calais, and then Eric Kulaga. He's that car kind of just waiting in the weeds right now, bringing up the rear in this battle. He doesn't need to be too concerned with what's going on. He's still got about 7 minutes left in the race. Chris Johnson, in an identical BMW, tries to go around the outside here of Andrew Hewson as they head down to turn 1. We'll see how it goes for Johnson around the outside.
Good, man, these guys are just putting on such a clinic on how to properly drive here. Enough give and take, but not too much give and not too much take, but just enough to navigate situations where they're putting themselves in, and this is just fantastic to watch.
Yeah, and for Chris Johnson, that trailer park girl line around the outside almost paid off for him. He was almost, he was so close to clearing Andrew Houston. If he could have done that, I'm sure he would have been set to just go ahead and fly away from these guys. But Andrew Houston continues to put on a real clinic of how you got to run this track, and just heads up good defensive driving, but not really enough to kind of anger any of your peers. You know, he's doing a great job racing them side by side and being fair about it.
And that's a great point too about not angering somebody, because if somebody starts to irritate me, and I'm sure most drivers are the same way. At least I'd like to think they are. But
yeah,
my car will all of a sudden become a lot wider if I start feel like somebody is crossing lines, should I say, of etiquette.
Yeah, either your car gets a lot wider or you start to lose patience, and all of a sudden, instead of, one car there off in the grass, looks like a Ferrari there, just patiently going to wait in the grass until the Pro-Am drivers go by. Good heads up driving by him. But yeah, I'll start to make more riskier moves, per se.
Yeah, if you're behind somebody, all of a sudden you got to go from being patient to almost having to put yourself in a bad spot to get around them, to get the spot or put them in a bad spot. Usually those situations don't really work out so well, but these guys are just, like I said, doing a fantastic job of having just enough give and take. I mean, they're not giving each other a whole lot of room. They're not like completely moving over or staying off of each other. They're doing it textbooks, it's textbook how they're doing it.
Yeah, certainly not. They might be giving each other maybe like a lane and a quarter to a lane and a half. I mean, not a whole lot of extra room between all these guys. You might be wondering what the overall battle for the lead is looking like in all the different classes. Matthew Plaisance starting to close in on Mr. Beaver just up the road. That's the Mercedes you can see on the left-hand bottom portion of your screen. We'll see if Matthew can get any closer towards the end of this race. In the pro category, it's still Murray ahead of Chase Wilson and then Harry Wills. They round out your pro category. Ethan Bass, he was that driver that kind of went with that alternate strategy with going for a little bit of a short second stint and a longer third stint. Matthew Plaisance continues to eat in to that lead of Beaver.
He does, and that traffic in front of him is gonna play a factor here. It has helped him really close in, and now in his shoes, well, now we're down to 4 minutes. Look at that right in front of him.
Around.
Wow.
I'm not too sure that Mercedes might have
we were on board, and the guy doesn't flinch. That was probably his reaction was better than the replay there. You talk about ice in the veins. Well done, Matthew. Well done.
Yeah, the battle for P3 here in the Pro-Am category continues to stay hot. Thank you, Daniel. They were side by side as they went to turn one. Looked like there was finally going to be a pass for that last podium position, but sure enough, Andrew Houston continues to hold on to the spot with an absolute iron grip.
Yeah, when you're this close and time is winding down, you're pushing. You're pushing as hard as you can, and man, and this is where things can get dicey, because when you're pushing, that's going to open the door to maybe where you push it a little too far, maybe drive it in a little too deep, get the back of the car upset, maybe lose it or get off course a little bit. So right now you've got to push, but you've got to stay within the bounds of what your car will give you and what the track will give you.
Matthew Plaisance has actually taken over the lead here in this last half a lap since we stopped looking at these guys. Aaron Beaver going to try to do a charge out the outside. Maybe he'll go for the over-under here out of turn 2 to go now hurtling towards the kink. We'll see if Beaver has anything left in the tank here for Plaisance just up the road there. Those two cars separated by less than 0.2 of a second.
Yeah, I got a feeling too. They're either on their last lap or the next to last lap here, probably coming up here, judging by where the time is. So if you've got something to make these moves, you got to make them now. You can't wait.
Yeah, time's running out. It's getting to that bottom half of the hourglass as the race continues to tick down. This should be their second to last lap. I believe Murray's going to cross the start-finish line here in just a couple seconds to bring out the white flag. So it looks like everybody in the race so far should have one more lap to complete. As you can see, Matthew Plaisance still holding the lead there. The lower right-hand side of the corner, this is that battle for P3 in the Pro-Am category.
Just looking outside and inside and just trying to find a place to pass. I think that battle down there as they get into the horseshoe, and the white flag is out on the course here.
Yeah, so Matthew
Plaisance
going to come across the start-finish line to take the white flag for his class as well. Alex Murray now into the International Horseshoe. You can see that battle for P3 still going on. So it looks like, as everything plays out, they're still on their second to last lap too.
Yeah, they'll come around here and then get the white flag with those guys, and when they do, you know at that point it's all or nothing here, and you got to push, but you can't make a mistake.
Yeah, upper left-hand corner of your screen is the driver in the lead in the pro category and the overall lead of the race. That's Alex Murray. He's done a phenomenal job. I mean, this is the guy. He started the race in the 4th position. He lost the spot right off the bat. He was riding around in the 5th spot for the majority of the opening laps until we saw our 2 leaders, the 2 drivers up there challenging for the race, winning the pro category, go off track there into turn 1. Then he basically gained 2 spots, and both those drivers having to tow back to pit road. He rode around in the 3rd position for, I'm going to have to say, at least the first 45 minutes of this race. And boy, as soon as those 2 twisted guys started to get into it with each other, Alex kind of just came in and just swooped up the lead. So he's done a phenomenal job all race long. You see, continues to kind of navigate his way here through this lap traffic. See a couple of drivers now just kind of siding his way through them.
Yeah, checkered flag is now within sight for him, so he can exhale here, and he's going to bring home the first win of the season. It's going to be Alex Murray at the line.
Shift our attention here now to Blake Scott, who's got the lead in the Pro-Am category. He still has now 1 more lap left to go. You can see Plaisance and Beaver take the checkered flag for themselves as well. So looks like it is going to be Matthew Plaisance taking the first checkered flag there in the AM category. Scott currently holding the lead there for this Pro-Am category. So he's going to come through the bus stop there in his BMW. Go ahead, John.
As I say, he's got a pretty sizable lead here, so he could almost run out of fuel here and coast along the line, but probably still hold on here.
Yeah, push the clutch in and just basically give away the whole 9-second lead there. But checkered flag here at Daytona, the first victory of the season and the series there for Blake Scott in the Pro-Am category. See the rest of the Pro-Am category come around. You can see this battle here for P3 in this category still continues to be hot and heavy. Looks like Andrew Hewson is going to take it over Chris Johnson. Oh, side-by-side battle here for the lead. It looks like it's going to be barely Chris Johnson over Rich Calais.
Those guys are probably got to talk to each other and have a nice conversation about that and say, man, that was a lot of fun, and pleasantries there, and what a nice finish there.
Yeah, I'm sure they're both going to have big smiles on their faces. So I think, Daniel, we should be set to go ahead and run through the final finishing order in all 3 of our classes here. All right, so like we just mentioned there, Alex Murray going to go ahead and bring home the checkered flag in the pro category. Chase Wilson going to come home in the 2nd spot. Harry Wilson going to round out the podium positions for the pro category. Ethan Bass going to finish in the 4th spot. Kai Dazel's going to come home in 5th, followed by Chris Long in 6th. Jeremy Littleton in 7th. Dean Timms 8th. Ryan Komprowski in 9th. And to round out the original finishing order there, Blake Scott going to come home to be the first driver in the Pro-Am category to cross the start-finish line, 10th place overall. 2nd place goes to Shreyas Venkadarju. Andrew Hewson will finish third overall in the Pro-Am category. Chris Johnson fourth. Rich Calais round out the top 5. Eric Kulaga in sixth. Michael Fowler seventh. Steven Martinez in eighth. Michael Kulaga in ninth. Brandon Medling going to round out the top 10. Kyle Smith, Justin Risto, after a hard impact there to the outside wall, just goes a couple laps down. Good recovery for him. Nick Stein, Mark Scott round out the 14-car Pro-Am category. Bringing home the win there, you could see the heated battle we saw between Matthew Plaisance and Aaron Beaver, He's going to come home in the second position. Eli Sasek going to round out the podium spots. Greg Brockway started on pole, falls to fourth position overall. Rick Swan going to round out the top 5. John Casey, Andrew Hewitt in seventh. Mark Casey, eighth. Eric Pepino in ninth. Now it looks like we've got a lot of drivers here waiting to get interviewed. Let's why don't we start off with your Alex Murray. Big victory here tonight, Alex. First victory, points paying race there of the season. That's got to be a pretty good feeling, man.
Yeah, it's a good feeling. I honestly didn't expect it. I came here just looking to gather some good points tonight. Had things go our way and played the fuel strategy right and ended up in victory lane.
Yeah, I mean, when you say played, had things kind of play your way there, towards the start of this race, you lost a spot in the opening laps, and you were just kind of riding around, letting the race come to you. Would you maybe attribute that to having better tires than the rest of the field at the end of the race when it kind of mattered, or is that just the way you wanted the pit strategy to play out?
Going into the race, I knew that tires were going to be a factor at the end, and fuel saving was also going to be a factor. Jacob and James getting together helped out a lot because those guys were fast too. And then obviously just riding in the draft, being able to fuel save 2 extra laps throughout both stints was beneficial. So the car was fast. I had to baby it for a while there just to keep the tires on it, but when it came down to the end, we were really quick.
Well, Alex, before I let you go, who do you have to thank for your win tonight?
Prodigy Esports, Simrap Market, everybody that supports me. I honestly didn't expect to win. I came into this league thinking, if I can run in pro and finish top 5, I'll be happy. And first race of the year, go out and win it. So I guess we'll look to do that next week too, or next race.
Yeah, certainly. Alex, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, and congratulations on the win. That's a big deal, man. Big statement win.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
That was Alex Murray, overall winner of the race and in the pro category. And, John, looks like we've got a whole lot of guys to pick through.
We do, but I'm with Chase Wilson here. And, Chase, interesting race here. A little bit longer. We've got our first endurance race of the season. Walk me through your race here.
Yeah, that first stint I was really struggling to save while I was putting pressure on the leader, and had to end up trying to save later on in the stint. We had a really good battle going into that last stint. Alex played it really well, got the draft, saved enough fuel, and came out 2 seconds ahead of us. And I didn't have the tires at the end to be able to catch back up to him. It was a great race. It looks like we're going to have a great season in the pro category, and I'm just happy I kept it clean and was able to finish the race in P2 today.
Well, real quick, because the tire wear is something relatively new here for the GT3 cars, at least in the how it wears currently. And how long of that into that stint there before you could kind of start feeling some degradation in those tires and you started to have to look after them?
So I took tires after the first pit stop, just trying to mitigate the time loss. It was probably that last 10 minutes. You can probably see it in the relative. I just couldn't get out of 6 and back onto the to NASCAR 1. And keep the pace. It is something I'll have to work on moving forward. It's tough to practice those situations when you're needing to push, but then also trying to save fuel. So it's a long season. We still got a lot of races to go, and it should be fun as we move forward.
Well, absolutely. Well, congratulations on a great run here tonight. Who would you like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, first off, everyone behind the scenes at WSL for getting this set up. You guys in the broadcast booth for keeping everyone entertained, and all the friends and family that are watching. And a big shout out to Twisted, helping me push myself, winning the Pro-Am category and bumping up to Pro. I knew I was going to be in for some fun battles, and I just want to reach out to those guys and just thank them for all they've done for me over this season, and looking forward to a good season the rest of the way.
Well, we're looking forward to watching you the rest of this season here, and hopefully we talk to you quite a few more times here before season's end.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Let's hope that's the case.
Absolutely. That's Chase Wilson. Austin, who have you caught up with?
Yeah, I got Blake Scott in here. Blake went ahead and won in the Pro-Am category. Blake, you got a copy?
Yes, I do.
Awesome stuff, man. It looked like, you were having a phenomenal race there out in front. There was a whole lot of room behind you. Talk me through your race, man. It seemed like, I'm not going to say it was easy, but it kind of looked it there towards the second half.
It definitely was not easy. I don't know if you guys caught it, but I actually lost it on the very first lap. So it was a fight. It was a comeback. But yeah, we made it happen, and it was an awesome race.
I'm going to level with you. I was totally going to gloss over that fact here in your interview, but since you kind of brought it up here, what was it like, man, having to charge up through the field? I was like, man, you had a really good qualifying lap, but then, like you said, you kind of gave up all that progress and then had to get it back the hard way. I mean, it's one thing winning from the front, but it's another thing practically coming from the back like you had to do after that mistake there.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely lucky it wasn't an endurance race tonight, but it was tough. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little discouraged on that first 10, 15 minutes, but stuck with it and kept pushing and realized I had some pace, and one by one, slowly made my way through the field and got the win. So can't complain there.
Yeah, honestly, it was a master class of a job you did, kind of methodically making your way up through the field. It was very entertaining, I will say, at the very least, to go ahead and make you, picking them up, putting them down, man, one after one. But Blake, I can't let you go without asking who you want to thank for your run tonight. I mean, this was quite the comeback, man.
Yeah, I want to thank the team, Aerokinetics. Thanks for having me on the team. It's been awesome. My dad is my racing partner. Check out the store, aerokinetics.merch.com, and we'll see you next week or a couple weeks, whenever the next race is.
Yeah, buddy. Blake, congratulations on the win, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, and nice job shouting out your dad, man. There's a lot of importance that dads have out there in the world.
Yeah, definitely. He's the one that got me into this motorsport stuff, so gotta thank him. He's been there the whole time.
Certainly, that was Blake Scott, winner. You can see there's where he went off there in the earlier part of this race. I think, John, you've caught up with the winner in the AM category, Matthew Plaisance.
I have. Matthew, this is John. You got a copy?
Yes. Hey, guys.
Hey, well, I tell you, you had an eventful night to bring home a checkered flag here for the AM division here. But walk me through your race and how many close calls do you think you had through the night?
Well, I'm kind of fuzzy on the details a little bit. I know that lap one, first horseshoe, somebody dive bomb up my inside, but I saw it coming, so I was able to avoid. Then a lot of it's a blur, and I just remember I had a lead for a while, and then I started getting caught. And then on the second stint, or the final stint, I'm sorry. I'm very heart still going right now. It was Aaron was catching me a lot, and then he got past me, but he messed up the bus stop with like 3 laps to go. I was going to try to wait to the last lap to get him on the bus stop, but he just got a little squirrely. And that was the opportunity, and I just took it.
Well, it's good to be a little out of breath. First of all, that was a long race, and second of all, it was actually a pretty exciting race. So let me ask you this. I think from what I'm gathering from some of the drivers and hearing some of their interviews is tires is going to be a big deal this season. How much did you have to, or did you at all adjust through the course of the night to either A, keep the tires under you, or use them as a strategy to maybe not use them early so you have them late? Explain to me what your thoughts are on how you approach the tires tonight.
Well, the plan was first stop, full tank tires, second stint, try to save as much as I could and for the end. But I was basically almost pushing quali laps the whole time, just out of necessity and fear, to be honest.
Well, that works to make you go fast, right? So
yeah.
No worries there. Did you take tires on the second stop?
No, I did not.
just I didn't have a watch on anybody tonight. What was your difference, time difference? Do you know from where you had new tires and once they wore off towards the end of a stint there?
Well, I actually hit about 2 laps earlier than I originally anticipated for the second stop, just because the pro leaders were coming up behind me less than 2 seconds, and I'm like, I'm not getting involved in that, so I decided to pit. And it was, I want to say it was maybe a 12-second stop, and for tires, I want to say it's just over 20, so I wasn't about to lose the 8 seconds. I wouldn't be able to get it back with, 10, 15 minutes left to go.
Well, that's what I was wondering, how much you had to gain back, because I touched on that in the broadcast earlier, and that's where I figured a lot of guys were trying to weigh their options. Can you make up that time? And yeah, 8 seconds that's a lot of time to make up there. But congratulations, good start to the season here. Who would you like to give a shout out to?
I want to give a shout out to Aaron, because he did he kept me on my toes. That was a real good race, and my teammate Braden didn't have such a good one, and then Rick, our new teammate, I think he came in 5th, I want to say. So hopefully start of a really great season.
Well, man, we hope to talk to you often here tonight, and for the rest of the season, should I say? But yeah, you did a heck of a job here tonight, and good luck on the rest of the season.
Yeah, John, we were wondering if those things are autographed, if those are yours, or what.
Oh, your helmet, yeah.
This is my current karting helmet. I actually got a guy to model it in iRacing for me. And then this is my old one, complete with a sticker that my girlfriend designed. You can about imagine what it says.
I like it.
Very cool. Very cool.
We won't quote
it was the other one that I was thinking, okay, because a lot of drivers, they collect helmets, and when I see a couple of helmets on there, I'm wondering, okay, there's stories, and of course you do have a story with it. So very, very cool. And Matt, again, great race tonight, bud. And I will say this, you got to go back, and I hope you watched the replay, but there was an incident. Yeah, there was an incident right in front of you. And I'm telling you, you didn't blink, you didn't do anything, you focused. And that, to me, I was like, okay, that was more impressive than what I saw on the screen. It's like, there you go. That's what you've got to do. That was really, really impressive. That, like I said, didn't blink. You did well.
Yep.
Have a good night. And have a good night. And hopefully, like I said, we talked to you several times here this year.
Yep. Good luck to everybody doing Sebring this weekend.
Absolutely. That's Matthew Plaisance, winner of the AM division, Austin.
Yeah, thanks, John. It's always so cool to talk to those guys, especially when you get a chance to interview them. And I was so happy we got the chance to interview Matthew there off his big win and ask him about that helmet. I was worried you might forget there, and I wanted to make sure that we got an answer to our question, because curiosity killed the cat. We'll say.
I'm glad that you remembered that, because I sure didn't. I got caught up with all this other racing stuff, so didn't stay with me very long.
All good, buddy. All good. I'd like to take a quick moment as well to thank our sponsors. The first of those, Race Anywhere, major distributor of sim racing products. They're based in the UK, specializing in some of the highest quality sim racing brands like ProSimU, GSI, OBP. Seriously, if you guys are looking to get a kit together for yourself, maybe for a sibling or a kid or a family member, seriously, check Race Anywhere first. And lots of people buying houses. Housing market pretty crazy here in the United States right now, finally coming down off its peak. Go for the Gap. Cami Sturch, she has an Etsy website, up and coming motorsports graphic design. She's an artwork creator. It's phenomenal stuff on there. Seriously, you got a bunch of blank walls around your house, maybe an office space, a basement, man cave. Seriously, check out her website to look for some awesome ways to fill up blank space on a wall. And last but certainly not least, IMB Racewear. They're a phenomenal company that offer a huge range of bespoke, no limits, fully customizable race and team wear for a full lineup and their entire product range. Check out their website. You can see a link down below as well. But lastly, on behalf of myself, Austin Belkey, my booth partner John Hine, and Daniel Costello, our director, and everyone else behind the scenes here, thank you so much for watching, and good night.